tires come all the way off the ground.
Family 4Runner roof box, home cooking, ground tent, cat hole, strap, shovel, high lift, lake, CB, FRS, ham, paper maps, apps, bike hike, climb. Howdy, friends. Welcome to the All Terrain Podcast, Episode 0. This is Mike. This is the podcast about going places, and we're kicking it off with a series on overlanding. In this series, we'll ask overlanders of all kinds about how they like to travel and learn a few things that we can use for ourselves. Our overlanding hero today is me, which is why this is Episode 0.
So, are you saying you're a zero, or?
Yeah, we got to start somewhere, right? Zero's not an integer, but whatever.
Nice.
So, for friends, the other voice you're hearing is Chris Webster. Chris is a professional archaeologist and producer of many podcasts in the Archaeology Podcast Network, as well as my friend and office mate and podcast mentor. Welcome, Chris. Thanks for being here.
All right. Thank you. And I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to help Mike get this podcast started because overlanding has a lot of parallels to not exactly archaeology,
right,
but archaeologists and how they travel and live around the country. There's a lot of parallels in the overlanding world.
Yeah, you got to go overland to get where you're going
Pretty much.
to dig holes, right?
Oddly enough, archaeology doesn't happen on the side of the road. Sometimes it does.
Well, hopefully that road is sometimes kind of bad, right?
That's right.
So you've done a lot of this stuff. You sleep in the dirt occasionally. you poop in a hole. You do all the stuff.
I've done all those things.
And you've got what is arguably one of the more popular and common and great overlanding vehicles, a Toyota Tacoma. I mean, a Toyota Prius, a Toyota Precoma.
Toyota Precoma. I've got both.
The Prius it's the pre-runner of the Toyota
God.
world. Yeah.
We took our Prius up to Blue Lakes, I think, south of Lake Tahoe one time, and we're like, oh, it's just a road, but we had it loaded up with stuff, and like tiny little rocks on this road were like scraping on the bottom of the Prius. Like, this was a bad choice.
Yeah. Well, that's what, yes, those usually cars like that have those plastic aero guards underneath that should protect your oil pan and whatnot.
Right.
So Chris is here because this is going to be an interview show. I would need somebody to interview me. So he's going to ask the questions, and I'm going to answer them, and then we'll there's 10 questions here that are kind of the most common questions that I see on the forums and the Facebooks and the social medias and stuff. And I also started yesterday, I did a survey. I've got about 50 survey results with answers to all these questions. And the answers, I was kind of surprised how it went. So we'll discuss that as we go along.
Okay.
So let's talk about sponsors for a second. My goal for this podcast is to be my own sponsor. If you check out our website, in addition to lots of videos and reviews and trip reports, you'll find a shop with hats, patches, and stickers that celebrate the all-terrain lifestyle. One product I think overlanders will like is the Patch Hat. The Patch Hat is a classic trucker hat with a 3-inch square of Velcro sewn to the front panel where you can affix the many Velcro-backed morale patches that you no doubt have languishing on the headliner of your rig where no one can see them. Right now, listeners of the All Terrain Podcast can get 25% off with a coupon code AllTerrainPodcast, all one word, at allterrainpodcast.com. So yeah, let's get started.
All right. So first question, family or friends? Who is in your overland crew?
So predominantly, we're a family. We're a family crew. I'm married. I have a wife of 20 years. Is it 19 years? It's 2007. 19 years at this point. And then we have, and we've overlanded as a couple many years. My first vehicle was a Jeep CJ7, and so we tried to get that stuck and marooned into many places. And then we had Subarus, which we took all over Nevada. But then also we have a 7-year-old boy and a 2.5-year-old boy, and they love camping. They love being in the dirt. They have no issues with any of that. They don't even really mind being in the car for long periods of time. So we're pretty lucky in that regard.
In some of your videos, I see, I often will see some other people in there. Is that local family that's going with you, or other friends?
Yeah. So my sister and brother-in-law have a little boy who's 7, like ours. And so they'll go on a couple trips with us now and then. They have a 4Runner, so they can pretty much go anywhere. And my parents my dad has a Silverado with a 4-wheel camper, so he can pretty much go anywhere. And then we have some other friends that we do stuff with, but we try to keep it, it's fun to go as family with kids, and everybody has a good time together.
Cool.
So the survey data on this is 43% family. So 43% family, 24% friends, and then one answered. 2 people answered wife, all of the above: wife, daughter, friends, friends and family. So it's the top 3 are family, friends, and then solo.
Solo. Nice.
So there you go. That's the results.
Solo is probably more the answer if you were to ask just archaeologists, because they're just out there by themselves going project to project. So, okay. So next question: what is your overlanding vehicle? And mine isn't just a Prius. I do have a Tacoma.
Tacoma,
as you kind of mentioned.
Tacoma.
I gotta make sure you heard that.
Yeah, so we have a 4Runner, a 1999 Toyota 4Runner. So that'd be a 3rd gen 4Runner. It's it's sort of stock. I basically have about a 2-inch lift front and rear on that, and then the tires are a little oversized. I have Treadrite tires, 265, 75, 16 Treadrites, and the Treadrites are oversized for oversized, so they're nominally a little bigger than a tire of that size would normally be. So my 4Runner's a 99. It's a 5-speed SR5 with locker, with a rear locker. So at the push of a button, factory locker, I can lock that rear end up and have really good traction.
Nice.
And then the 5-speed is also pretty uncommon, and I really like it. There's advantages to having an automatic, but I think there's some advantage to having a 5-speed.
For sure.
But the vehicle is just barely big enough for the 4 of us. Plus we have the dog, and the dog takes up a little bit of cargo space. So it's a tight fit sometimes. But the 4Runner on the survey, the 4Runner is I won't say overwhelmingly, but we had 6 4Runners, and then the next most common was FJ Cruiser and Toyota Tacoma.
Man, did you have it split by manufacturer too? Was it overwhelmingly Toyota?
You know what, I didn't. I left this one as a write-in, and so people wrote theirs in. I tried to. There's another 4Runner. I think some more results came in, but I should have had options to choose from here. But it's my first Google form. So as this podcast goes on, maybe these results will change.
Yeah, that's cool.
So 4Runners are the overlanding vehicle of the United States.
It seems like Toyota just like and you would know this, it seems like Toyota just like out of the gate without doing anything to it is kind of set up for a little more overlanding than your average truck or SUV. Yeah,
I think that's definitely true. We did a trip last year in Death Valley, and the Dedicara Canyon, there was a pretty rough 4-wheel drive section through there, and I did it no problem with my 4Runner. My brother-in-law did it no problem with his stock 4Runner, and then as we were leaving, a guy came through in a stock 4Runner and cruised right up it. So there's a lot you can do, and I think the take-home message there is that a lot of stock vehicles can do a lot of things. It's not just Toyotas, but it doesn't necessarily take that much to do most of the overlanding stuff that we do. And I'm sure you've seen that exploring all over in a stock vehicle. Yeah. Probably even rental vehicles at times.
Done it a lot in rental vehicles.
Yeah.
Although, quick story on rental vehicle, we were with a woman was driving this Suburban we had rented from Enterprise in Winnemucca. Suburban they gave us, by the way. And she's on a narrow 2-track road with high big sagebrush on both sides. And it was the actual big sagebrush, not low sagebrush, the different kinds. And the big sage, like, really tap roots down, could be 12, 14 feet. And so it's really stuck in the ground.
Yeah, it's no trivial matter.
No, she was turning around, and she just, like, we're like, hey, can you turn around? We expect her to just drive up the road to a spot where she could turn around, like, narrow 2-track. And she just pulls it in 90 degrees into the sagebrush. And when she pulled out, that's when we found out that the front end of the Suburban from the bumper on up to the hood was one piece. And all the plastic tabs that were holding it on just ripped completely off, and the whole front end of the Suburban was laying in the sagebrush.
Oh no!
Headlights and everything.
Headlights. Holy crap.
It's all one piece.
Wow.
So we had to throw it in the back, and we took it to Enterprise. And Enterprise has in their clauses that you're not supposed to go off-roading with their vehicles, although they know we do, but you're not supposed to. So we said it got clipped on a curb at the Walmart.
Yes. Anything can happen at Walmart.
Anything. That's right.
Cool. Well, we didn't get any Suburbans in the survey. However, there is a guy, I think he's Suburban Overland on Instagram, and he follows us on YouTube, who does get off-road in a Suburban. And a Suburban is essentially a Chevy truck. Well, at least the older ones are just Chevy trucks, and Chevy trucks are great.
Yeah.
So no problem there.
I guess you just have to see where you're going because they're big and long
They're
and
big.
wide, and so
Full-size trucks are tough.
that's right. All right, so you kind of mentioned this a little bit when you're talking about your vehicle, but how do you carry your gear? Because I see it parked out here most of the time. You got some extra stuff on it.
Yeah. So in a 4Runner, I have two things that we use to carry the gear on overlanding trips for the most part. I have a Yakima Skybox 16. I'm pretty sure it's a 16, which means that there are. It's big, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's a huge skybox, right? There are two bigger sizes of that skybox. There's an 18 and a 21.
What does that number refer to, though?
It's cubic
width?
feet, I
Oh,
think.
cubic feet. Okay.
Although it doesn't sound much big when you talk about cubic feet. Anyway, so up there we usually put our tent, our pads, which we have big sleeping pads, and our tent, our pads, our sleeping bags and pillows, and usually most of our clothing goes up there.
Light stuff.
And then in the back of the truck, in the cargo area, I've built a cargo storage shelf. So the shelf sits about 10 inches off the deck, and underneath that I can slide tools and a compressor, and I have, at all times, I have our camp chairs in there. We have some collapsible camp chairs, and you never know. I mean, it's super nice. You get done with a bike ride, you go to the beach, you have your camp chairs in there all the time.
Nice.
Shovels, axes, all that stuff goes in there, and I have, cubbies and everything. So then a bunch of stuff goes underneath, and then cooler goes on top, and then I have some of those Front Runner Outfitters. They're called Wolf boxes. They're 2 foot by 1 foot plastic boxes. I think they're modeled after a South African ammo can or ammunition can. It's something like that.
Okay.
Snap-on lid. Anyway, they're perfectly square, unlike most like action packers you can get, and the lids are flat. And so what I do is I stack 2 of those to one side in the 4Runner. I put a pad on top, and the dog sits on that.
Oh, nice.
Put a little bit more gear in the middle, and then the cooler sits on the other side. And because I have the deck at the top of the wheel wells, I can slide that stuff all the way to the side. And so it ends up being, it doesn't seem like it would be that convenient, but it's really convenient having that deck back there. Plus it has a slide out table so that we can make our lunches on the slide out table. It's super convenient.
Nice. That's probably another good reason for the 4Runners and Toyotas in general is because you lay those seats down and everything's just a big box back there.
Yeah, that's true.
Except for the wheel wells, it's really efficient on space, I think.
Yeah, and there are people that, we'll get into this in a different question, but we're never laying those seats down for obvious reasons.
Yeah, my wife and I, back to gear, we traveled around the country working as archaeologists for almost 2 years. And at some point, we still had our apartment in South Carolina and stuff in storage, but we eventually moved that to Washington State to get it on the other side of the country where my parents are. And they got rid of our apartment and literally lived out of our vehicle with camping gear and full excavation gear, but hotel gear as well for us.
Right.
And all of that, our seats were down in our 4Runner we had a 2008 4Runner for, I guess, 2 years probably. We never put them back up. We always had stuff back there, and it was just constantly loaded.
Yeah, a lot of people do. People do put their
put
their 4Runners down, put their seats down in whatever vehicle they have. Let's look at the survey on this one. How do you carry your gear? 51% in the vehicle. I kind of surprised by that because overlanding has this sort of reputation as being really roof rack heavy. An overlanding vehicle has a roof rack with a bunch of stuff bolted to it, and all the typical overlanding vehicle thing that you see out there is a truck with ammo cans, fuel cans, boxes and stuff strapped to the top, like a ton of stuff on the top, which seems crazy. So it was in the vehicle is number 1, roof rack is number 2. So plenty of people still answered that. Roof box, the way I go, 4%. It wasn't the smallest, but it wasn't the biggest. We have 1 trailer, panners. Somebody answered the motorcycle tour, and then
I wonder, add a question to your survey for next time, whether or not somebody has kids, because I'm willing to bet if they have kids, they have a lot more external storage. The seats go back up.
That's true. Yeah, that's definitely true.
Yeah.
That's definitely true.
All right, next question. What do you eat? Home cooking or backpacker food? Or hunt and kill? I'm just going to throw that one in.
Yeah. The hunt and kill would be fun, honestly. I just read a book about these guys in New Zealand who lived off the grid for over a year, for 2 years. Mm-hmm. It's actually, the book is called Wild Pork and Watercress by Barry Crump. And the movie just came out called Hunt for the Wilder People with
Nice.
Sam Neill. Very good, awesome movie, awesome book. Anyway, we do not hunt, we do not fish. We primarily eat home cooking. So I have a sort of a suite of not backpacker, but camp dishes that we'll cook that we'll eat. There's like grilled cheese and turkey, and burritos are super easy. But for the most part, if I make burritos camping, it's the same burritos I make at home. We try to be fairly low key with breakfast, just because it takes a while for us to get moving in the morning.
Right.
Yeah. So we do take regular food. We'll eat cereal and granola, and lunchtime we do sandwiches, turkey sandwiches, peanut butter sandwiches, just the works. I know a lot of I had the impression that a lot of people took backpacker food, but I don't think that is what the survey said. Where is the food one?
While you're looking for that, one thing we started doing a few years ago was we picked up, I think it was on sale or somebody gave it to us, I can't remember, but one of those food savers where you get the roll and you suck it down.
Right.
And you can throw, the nice thing about those packages is you can throw that in a jet boil and heat up any kind of food just in water.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be like soup, and you just don't open the package. Or you can punch a hole in it. You can throw it in a microwave if you happen to be in a hotel room. Or you can throw it in a pan on your stove as long as it's in water, because you don't want to melt the plastic around it. Or just dump it out into the pan, And we've done soup that way too. With soup, though, you have to freeze it first in like a Tupperware container, then put it in the thing, suck it down, and then you can let it thaw, and you've got soup.
Right. I would like to have one of those because there's always if I end up bringing like raw beef or something, and there's no Ziploc bag in the world that can contain that stuff.
No, there really isn't.
So we had 70% home cooking, and then 17% backpacker food.
That's not really a surprise to me, because if everybody's bringing everything with them, they're probably going to cook. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, depending on what you cook, you got to have a lot of gear. You got to have a stove. I should have a question about coffee too. That's pretty important.
That's pretty important.
Yeah. So most people are home cooking, and I don't know why that surprised me, because the other thing that people like about I know that a lot of people are into camp cooking and gourmet stuff. So interesting. But yeah, we're mostly home cooking.
I've been accused of glamping, but that's a different show.
Oh yeah, that's true.
All right, next question. Where do you sleep with all that stuff in your truck?
Right. So we have a ground tent. We have a REI Kingdom 6.
So nice.
I think it's a 6. Anyway, yeah, it's a big sort of barn-shaped tent, and I can pretty much stand up in it. I'm 6'2". I can pretty much stand up in it, but it's big enough for us all to get in there and lie down and have our gear, and it's not cramped. We can change clothes on one end and sleep on the other. So it's a good tent. It can withstand some good wind. It can withstand some rain. It's a robust. So yeah, ground tent. The only the downside is that it takes time to set it up, takes time to break it down. And honestly, I really like setting up the tent. I mean, it's like this. It's like this ritual that I get to do. We get to camp, and my wife, wrangles the kids. I pull the tent out of the roof box. I find a place to put it. It's like a whole ritual trying to find a place to put your tent. It's like a dog rooting around for a place to nest. So I set up the tent. It's a really nice tent as far as being able to set it up with one person. So I don't need any help. I get it all set up. I throw all the gear in it, and then I wrangle the kids, and she sets up the inside, throws the pads out, puts the sleeping bag, so it's all ready for us when we go to bed.
Man, is that a husband-wife thing? I typically will set up the tent. She'll help me, but then once our tent is set up, then my wife she takes off the shoes, she goes inside, and I'm tossing her stuff.
Yeah,
and then I'm setting up stuff on the outside.
I think everybody has the thing that they care about. Like Chris posted a video the other day on Facebook of his wife setting up their brand new tent in the living room, and somebody commented, "Why aren't you helping?" And my comment was the number one cause of divorce in the United States is we set up a tent together. It's not something couples can do together safely.
Yeah,
I don't recommend it. So the survey on this one, mostly ground tent. So we had mostly ground tent, and then in vehicle was the second with 9. 24 people responded ground tent, 9 in vehicle, and 8 rooftop tent. And the outliers were truck camper, on ground, on cot, no tent. I like that too. When I camp by myself or with just one of the boys, we sleep on the ground if we can. Hammock, pop-up roof of vehicle. I don't know what that means. Anyway, so in vehicle is something that always confounded me. Like, why would you want to sleep inside your vehicle? You can't feel the air moving. There's no wind unless you open the windows, in which case you're getting bugs in there. I can remember like a handful of times in my life where we slept in the back of a vehicle, and it always felt like failure.
Yeah. It feels stale and static, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't like it.
Yeah.
Plus, you've been sitting in there eating chili cheese Cheetos all day, and it probably doesn't smell good in more ways than one.
Right.
Rooftop tents, those are those. I'm sure you've seen the rooftop tents. They're big things that sit on top of the truck and fold out. It seems really. I've never slept in one myself. It seems really convenient for overlanding, where you're spending the night someplace different every day. You can leave most of your sleeping gear inside them. I think the issue with ours is I still don't think that we could fit all of our gear in the truck. Because I have other stuff up there. Although I'd like to try. One of the people that I'm going to talk to for this series, his name's Michael Schaefer. He's with Nevada Overland NV. He's on Instagram and all that stuff too. He's got the same truck I have, a little more kitted out for four-wheeling. He's got 3 kids, and I think they have a dog.
Wow.
Anyway, they do all this stuff in their 4Runner and they recently got a rooftop tent, so it's got to be possible.
Yeah.
So we'll talk to him and figure out how that's possible.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I've always been intrigued by rooftop tents, but always thought I don't want to cave my roof in, because I just even if it can handle my weight and my wife's weight and the weight of the tent and the weight of everything else, I don't know. It seems sketchy to me, but it seems really cool, but sketchy.
It does seem cool.
All right. So you mentioned the big tent earlier, and I know those come with a huge rain fly and like a vestibule inside.
Right.
So I'm guessing that's where you poop. You're just like right outside the door.
Yes,
So that's the next question.
We cook in there, we poop in there. That's true. No, we poop in. We do a cat hole. We go camping, and we need to go. You wander off. You dig a hole, 6 to 8 inches deep. Everything goes in there, and you cover it back up and walk away, and it's good, and you're done. I've seen a lot of instances recently of people doing that on the surface, either pooping on the surface or just leaving toilet paper on the surface.
Right.
Which toilet paper is toilet paper. It's not going to be here 5 years from now, but it's ugly.
Yeah, it's
and
so
it's
gross. Yeah.
Especially with a 2-year-old who doesn't necessarily know that there are things you don't pick up.
Right.
So yeah.
Now, when you're, I don't know, when you're overlanding, if you're staying in one place for more than a night, or if your intent is to continuously move, but if you were to stay in one place for a little while, do you have the kids, or do you coordinate with other people and say, okay, this is the area that we're going to dig our holes?
Yeah, we don't. It's generally you go a certain distance away from camp and away from water, and obviously away from the road.
Right.
But no, we haven't usually had to do that. When we every once in a while we'll go up to Bend. We usually go up to Bend every year with another family and stay at one of the dispersed camping areas up there. And in that case, the other family has a trailer with a toilet, so they're not having to do that.
Okay.
So unfortunately, our older son is old enough to the point where we just dig him a hole and leave him the kit and go. And I have this little bag in the back of the car all the time. I used to call it the poo pocket, but now I'm going to call it the cat hole kit. It's something I have left over from when I used to go backpacking a bunch. It's a little zipper pocket with I have toilet paper in there, I have wipes in there, I have a shovel and like a survival knife.
Nice.
Just because you never know.
You never know.
And so that's always there. You just grab that and go. And it's always in there, and almost all the time it's got toilet paper on it. But every once in a while we run out and I forget to put it in there.
As an archaeologist, people always think we always have our trowel with us, our trusty trowel.
Right.
It's like our symbol of our job, and it's a symbol of the Archaeology Podcast Network.
It's on your logo.
Everything. But the only reason I carry my trowel in the West, because we don't dig unless on survey, unless we're doing a excavation or something. So we just basically do hikes. We do everything's on the surface. Back east, you use your trowel a lot, and in the Midwest, you use your trowel a lot. But out here in Nevada, we don't use our trowel at all on survey. The only reason I have it is to dig cat holes.
Right.
That's it.
It happens, I mean, you're drinking coffee all the way out to your field site. It takes you 2 or 3 hours to get there. Guaranteed you're going to have to release.
I've been known to have a thermos full of coffee on the right side of my pack so I could reach it in those cold mornings.
Right.
That 40-degree temperature swing in Nevada, where you still want
brutal.
the coffee until like 10, and then you're shedding everything and you're drinking cold water. Yeah.
It's brutal.
Nice.
So did I do the survey results?
No, I don't think so. Yeah,
so where do you poop? I was really surprised at this because there's so much talk on the forums and on the Facebook groups about people digging, people having porta potties and making their own bucket potties.
Right.
Which honestly,
That's
I mean,
gross.
the thing that I've seen lately is a Home Depot bucket with a bag and a toilet lid on it. And
don't they make like a lid that's like a toilet
they
for
do.
a bucket?
Yes, they do. So it's that, whatever that's called. And my dad tried that. We've been camping my whole life, and my dad tried that at one point. And I went up to use it, because we would go to the same place every time. We disperse camp and go to the same place every time. And so he'd set that up in this little weird stand of trees. It was super creepy. Anyway, you go up there, and if somebody's used it before, then you're basically sitting on a little bucket full of poop, and it's not awesome.
And put it in your truck.
Yeah, and at that time we had a Bronco, and so he would put that thing in the truck somewhere, double bag it, put it in the truck, and then we'd have to stop somewhere on the way home at a pit toilet and dump it in the pit toilet, right? So you can't dump the bag into the pit toilet. You have to, and what do you do with the bag? So it's just a huge problem. So anyway, most people answered cat hole. We had 26 cat holes, 6 porta potties. And then there was a cat hole with toilet seat, because you can also get one of those little toilet seats on a stand and then just poop into a hole.
Right.
Which that's okay, but we can all squat.
Yeah, those
something called a groover. I don't know what a groover is.
I don't think I want to know what a groover is.
Not in that regard.
I mean, just the thought of even double bagging it or putting the lid on that bucket and then throwing it in your truck. I've seen how stuff shakes and moves in my truck, and like steak in a Ziploc, that shit's not staying in the bag.
Yeah. You can't trust a bag for food that you want to eat. You certainly can't trust it for poop.
That's right. All right. So when you're crash your vehicle because poop spilled everywhere, and you just run off the road, what kind of recovery gear do you carry?
So recovery gear is a big topic in the forums and on the groups and stuff that you'll see on the outside of the trucks. This is like the base. We carry pretty much the basics because we're not super into the hardcore four-wheelings, and I'm pretty good at avoiding situations where you're going to get stuck. So we carry a snatch strap or a kinetic strap. So this is it's like a 4-inch wide strap. I have an ARB 4-inch wide strap, and so if somebody gets stuck in sand or snow or mud, you attach the strap to one vehicle, to the stuck vehicle. You attach the strap to the working vehicle, the recovery vehicle, and you get a little speed going, and that inertia stretches the strap, and then that energy gets it recoils and pulls the vehicle out. I've used that. We used that on our Death Valley trip. The last day of our Death Valley trip, we came across actually an RV stuck in the sand at Eureka Dune in Death Valley, and he was buried. And so I hooked up the strap and gave it a try and didn't budge him. And he took his foot off the brake, and I was able to pull him out.
My God.
So it worked well. And the one thing that I've added since then is I have a little receiver shackle. So it's a solid metal bar that goes into the receiver, the trailer hitch, and you can pin it in, and there's a shackle on that end. So I have that. But when I pulled that guy out, he had a trailer hitch, but he didn't have a pin or anything. And so I had to, at one point I had to wrap something around somebody's bumper to get him out, which is not ideal. So now I have an extra pin.
Nice.
So it's got a loop. You just stick the loop in the receiver, throw the pin in, you're good to go.
Nice.
So I have that. So we carry that. I carry shovels. I carry a smattering of tools, stuff that I'm not a mechanic, but I know how to do a couple things. So I carry the tools. I carry a jack.
I think the big lesson there is, like you said, start out is not to get yourself in those situations to begin with as much as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the survey results on this, all of the above, is pretty much what half the people answered. All of the above. People usually carry straps and a shovel at least, or straps and a shovel and a high lift jack. So I need to figure out better way to answer this question to make the or a better way to visualize the data on this one. Anyway,
Yeah, AAA's not coming out to help you out, are
AAA is
they?
not coming, not coming. If you get a hold of them anyway.
Nice. All right, so shit spilled all over your truck, poops everywhere. You crashed it. You got it out.
We're
Now you gotta.
never gonna get away from the poop, are we?
No, now you've got to clean it off. So onboard shower or lake or something else.
Right. So I come from my background in camping and exploring is you know you take a shower, you go camping, and then you take a shower when you get back. And
Right.
if in the meantime you can go for a swim, it's all the better.
Right.
Right, because that's fun.
Yeah.
So we're in the lake category there, the lake or stream, and the little boys will dive right into just about anything. And you know, we stay clean enough doing it that way. And in the desert, you know, it's dry, you're not getting muddy, but you know, you're gonna get dirty and you can start to stink, and that's just the way things go.
But what's your time limit? Like, how long will you go out? I mean, in Nevada, you can go weeks without seeing a lake or any water whatsoever.
true.
So, or do you plan your trips to where maybe that's going to be a factor?
Yeah, you know, if it comes down to it, you know, and I have enough water, you know, there's always the towel shower. You know, if you need to get sunblock off your neck and your face.
Right.
But we don't. The point is, we generally don't carry a shower. There's a number of, there's a number of shower options you can get. One attaches to the roof rack. Other ones, there's some other things you can do where you can have a hose and you can drop the hose in a creek, and the hose will run through the cooling system in your car and spit out hot water.
Jeez.
And
That's kind of cool.
it's kind of cool. I think it's a little excessive. It's not something that I've had interested in spending the time and effort to do.
It's a little in the glamping category.
It is definitely glamping. So the survey results on this one were overwhelmingly lake stream. Most people do the lakes. We had 15% with onboard shower. The next was baby wipes. And honestly, we're pretty heavy on the baby wipes. I got to admit with that. We're pretty heavy on the baby wipes.
Was that before or after you had babies?
That's since then, yeah. You know, before then, honestly, I used to do a lot of mountain bike races, 24-hour races and stuff, and you know, it's nice to clean yourself off in the bike riding area. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, most people are bathing in a lake.
Gotcha. All right. So, what do you use for communication? And I'm actually intrigued by this question because I'm wondering. I can see this as being like, do you mean like satellite phones, like communication outside of the group, or communication within the group and radios and things like that?
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but I guess it's both. Generally, for communication, I have a CB radio in the car, mounted in the car, and that was a real waste of time and effort because nobody that we go with has a CB, and when we do, I go with my one friend that has a CB. The CB is terrible. It doesn't connect very well. It gets blocked by trees, and you go over a hill and out of range pretty quickly.
Line of sight.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
So our fallback for vehicle to vehicle is FRS radios, which is a family radio service, which is the little yellow, they call them bubble pack radios, or you can get them at Home Depot and you know, the sporting goods stores. They're surprisingly good, and they work. My son uses them to talk to his friend who lives about a mile away.
Nice.
So they'll work in the neighborhood between the two. They work between the vehicles. We've used them on all of our trips, and they work great.
Nice.
If you're outside that range, you know, the other thing I have is I'm a licensed radio amateur, and so I can use I have a handheld two band radio, and so that's I can use that to talk vehicle to vehicle, and I've used that on a couple of trips. There was one trip we did the Mustang tour last month. Yeah, it was last month, and for that we had all three of the vehicles had radio operators, so we communicated that way, and it's by far the best. I mean, it's even better than a phone call, honestly, in simplex like that. So if I could get all my family and friends to get the ham radio thing, I would. It's cheap, but you gotta pass test.
Right. Unless you're a licensed pilot, FYI.
Oh, you can.
You have an FCC license as a licensed pilot. It's included because as a pilot, you have to communicate on tube radio. So part of your training is if you have a pilot's certificate, then you have a license, the operator license.
So
as well.
you can use it even when you're not flying?
Oh yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
Yeah, it's just regular. I mean, it's not a separate license like you probably have.
Right.
But if you have a pilot's license and somebody were actually check your credentials on this
Right.
thing, you just show them that.
Do you have a call sign and everything?
No, it doesn't go that far, but it
Okay.
does license you to use the equipment.
Interesting.
So, what about personal locator beacons and stuff like that? Does anybody ever take one of those out? I'm thinking about, you guys are stuck. There's no outside communication,
Yeah.
and nobody's heard from you for a week.
Yeah, we don't is the short answer. I can definitely see the reason why people get those. Honestly, even when we were in Death Valley, in the most remote parts of Death Valley, we wouldn't have had to wait very long before somebody came along to help.
That's a good point.
So-
Summer in Nevada.
Yeah, and we did a trip. We did a trip when we drove back from Lovelock to Lovelock, Nevada, to Pyramid Lake, and we were in some pretty remote spots. And at one point, we were on the road that hadn't been driven in a while, and if we'd broken down there, nobody would have come along for a couple of days.
Mm-hmm.
But we, it would have been a 5-6 mile walk
Right.
to some place where people do come along. So we focus more on being able to wait it out
Mm-hmm.
than anything else. And then the one thing I am interested in is something called APRS.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Automated Packet Reporting System, which is a way for you to send packet data, basically location-based, and then text message data via packet, which is like Internet Protocol, over an ad hoc network of their dedicated repeaters. And I think
Right.
as I understand it, the base stations will also it's like peer-to-peer as well.
Right.
So this data will get sort of propagate back through a system, and you can actually send text messages via an internet via a website, and you can send it'll broadcast your position.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to get that set up. You can either hack it together yourself, or you can buy a unit that
Nice.
that does that. The survey data on this one is mostly and again, I didn't organize this question very well. It's mostly CB.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like CB FRS. I think the order here is going to be CB FRS, and then GMRS, and then ham, and then some people are using. There's a number of products that'll let you basically you attach this antenna to your phone, and there's an app, and then that app uses I think a 70 centimeter signal to communicate to other phones that are similarly equipped.
We've experimented with a thing called GoTenna,
Right,
which is like that, and then a newish one. Well, they're not new, but they came out with a new version, one called Beartooth.
right. I've seen
Yeah,
those.
yeah. They look like they've got a lot of promise.
Yeah, they work
actually.
fairly well.
Yeah, totally.
And part of the thing here is I like to be disconnected.
Right.
So I'm not super anxious to reconnect. And if there's any chance at all that I'm going to go someplace where my phone is off network and I could get a message from somebody somehow, I'm not too anxious to have that happen.
Right. Well, I'll tell you, I'm the squadron commander of the local Civil Air Patrol chapter here in Reno, and or squadron, and I'm sure some of the people we've had to send planes out for and go search for probably thought the same thing.
Yeah.
But the point I would just say is, yes, do that, because that's great. Go disconnected, but tell someone where you're
Right.
going to be
Right.
and when you're expected to return.
Exactly, yeah.
And when you don't meet those milestones, they know exactly where to look for you.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've always done that, and that goes back to
Yeah.
mountaineering as well.
Yeah, I was in the first plane sent up to look for that family that was lost in Lovelock in the winter a few years ago. We were the first plane out, and the first grid, we had these grids that we searched, and the first grid that we searched was their last known location, the
Right.
sledding area where they go. But they were nowhere near that grid.
No.
They'd already left. They went a different way out,
Right.
and didn't tell anybody, and rolled their. They had an SUV. They rolled it. It was upside down. Turns out they were all okay, 2 people and 3 younger kids, and they ended up burning one of the spare tires and putting
Yeah, I
like
remember
rocks
that.
in there. Yeah,
Yep.
and they brought their hot rocks inside. It was genius.
Right.
Kept them alive for a few days.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, just tell people where you're going and try not to deviate.
Yeah. Tell people where you're going. Don't deviate. And then if something does happen, stay where you are.
Right.
Stay with the vehicle.
The minute the guy says, "I'm going to go find help,"
Right.
he's never heard from again.
Exactly. Exactly.
Right. All right. So speaking of never heard from again, what do you use for navigation?
So navigation generally, I try to keep it to maps, paper maps, and guidebooks. This the last trip we did to Mojave Road. I downloaded one of the GPS tracks and had it running on HEMA maps, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked flawlessly. I mean, you put the thing up on the dashboard and you watch the blue arrow follow the pink line, and
Nice.
there's no problem. And that's for something like the Mojave Road. Mojave Road can be hard to follow. Although that was, we did it like 25 years ago. It was really hard to follow. We spent a lot of time waving our arms and looking over hills.
Mm-hmm.
This time it would have been really easy because it's really, 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 really well marked.
Okay.
So paper maps and then a GPS app we'll use, because a lot of them you can download the grids where you're going.
Mm-hmm.
We don't use a standalone GPS or anything like that.
Okay.
The maps are fun. In fact, the last trip we did to Lovelock, we just used paper maps, and that was it. I think I was tracking it just for later use, but paper maps for navigation. It's much more fun. I mean, to me, the adventure is in route finding and figuring out where you're going and seeing something on a map and then discovering what it's like in reality.
Nice.
The survey on here is paper maps.
Mm-hmm.
Paper maps, guidebooks, mobile phone maps. You could select more than one. So this is my survey data is not very good in this regard, but people like paper maps.
Nice. Okay. All right. So aside from teaching your kids how to read a map, because that's a dying art these days. I see that people coming out of college in archaeology and they don't know how to read a topo map.
Really?
So shocking actually.
It is surprising.
What other non-driving activities do you like to do on your overland trips besides, digging cat holes, bathing in a lake, and
and trying to
and setting up the tent,
getting out my my radio and trying to connect to repeaters. Yeah.
That's right.
We're into hiking, biking, rock climbing, scrambling, exploring. The last trip we did to the Mojave Road, we actually did a really cool hike with some climbing on it on the Rings Trail in the Hole in the Wall area.
That was a great video. I want to go there now.
It's really
fun. Really cool.
It's really fun. And that was great. And, hiking, we hiked to the top of the sand dune, which is going to come out in the next episode.
Nice.
Of that. And, we do a lot of straight up camping too. Like this last weekend, we went to Bowman Lake in California, which required a little bit of off-roading to get there. Mm-hmm. And rough roading, and then we did nothing but climbing once we got there, climbing and water holing. So, we try to do a lot less driving. We stop, we get out, we look at ruins, we like ghost towns and artifacts and stuff like that. So, a lot more than, I think for a lot of people, it's a lot more than just driving. And then the survey results say, so we got hiking, fishing, hunting, boating. Mostly hiking and biking is what it looks like, and then a lot of fishing and hunting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, somebody put down campsite lunacy, feats of campsite lunacy, which sounds interesting. Who posted that? I wonder.
Hey, after seeing the video at Ignite Reno that we went to,
beefy butt flaps posted that.
Was I'm interested in s'mores that aren't just graham crackers and like they had all these crazy things.
Yeah, we just went to a program in Reno where somebody talked about all the different kinds of s'mores you can make.
I never thought about putting cookies on the outside.
Oh, really?
That's ridiculous.
That's academic, man.
My God.
That's like Bush League stuff right there.
Nice. Well, I'm going to throw in one more sneaky question because I'm interested. You've done this a lot, and you mentioned being prepared. It sounds like these days when you go on trips, even though you've got kids, which would terrify some people to take a 2-year-old on a trip like this, let alone take them out of the house.
Right.
Can you think of a time in the whole time you've been doing this, 20, 25 years, however long you've been doing this, what was your scariest moment where you thought, my God, are we going to get out of here? Have there ever been one of those?
Let's see. So the one that comes to mind would be a time it was in Nevada, and it was one of our first trips in Nevada and we moved here in 99. So it was in the summer of 2000, and we had a 86 Subaru wagon, a Loyal wagon DL, and it was silver. You know the wagon I'm talking about. It's boxy.
Oh yeah.
Those things had real 4-wheel drive too at that time with a push button and everything. So we had that thing, and we took it over Grants Pass, Do you know where that is? So it's out by a place called Berlin Ichthyosaur State Park.
Oh yeah.
And then there's a pass that goes up and over from that into Indian Creek Valley and Reese River Valley. So we did that, and we drove down this. I might be conflating a number of different events here.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I drove down this road that was overgrown in the middle, and I hit something and just destroyed the catalytic converter.
Oh man.
And then we crossed the Reese River, and we had to do some like four-wheeling to get across this washed over thing. And then I think later in the trip we were over in Smoky Valley, which is the next valley over from the Tiabi Crest, and we were at the hot spring. We'd set up camp at the Tokima Caves campground, and we drove down to the Spencer Hot Springs. It's kind of sort of a windy road with a drop off on one side. It started raining. Like I've never seen it rain before. Like water is bouncing off the ground, and it goes. Yeah. We're sitting in the hot springs saying, "Oh, it's nice. We'll have a nice little rain around the hot springs." And we're like, "We better get the hell out of here, or else we're gonna get stuck because it's a big muddy flat area by the hot springs."
Right.
So we get in the car, and I'm like motorboating this car across a lake. I don't know. There's potholes. There's ruts. I can't see anything because it's full of water. It was bone dry like half an hour ago. We do that. I wasn't sure we were going to get through that. We had to go up this slimy road to get to Tokima Caves, and we ended up packing our stuff to leave because it was really raining. And came down that road, and I thought we were done. But we didn't slide off the road. We made it out.
Rain in backcountry Nevada is a blessing and a curse. It's about the most horrible thing you could experience.
Yeah, it can be crazy.
Yeah. Nice. Cool.
But we try not to have too many close calls like that with the kids. But
well, you learn from experience.
With a 99, with a 20-year-old truck, it's bound to happen.
You learn from experience, and you learn from listening to podcasts like this.
That's true. All right. Well, that's it. We've reached the end of the episode 0 of the All Terrain Podcast. Thanks for your help, Chris. Good to have you here.
No problem. Thank you.
All Terrain Podcast was produced by Mike Henderson with help from Chris Webster from the Archaeology Podcast Network. I could have done it without you, but let's face it, I probably wouldn't have.
Probably not.
This podcast is recorded at the Reno Collective, a co-working community in Reno, Nevada. Learn more at renocollective.com. Microphones supplied by Colin Loretz, and the soundboard belongs to Chris Webster. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.